Ubisoft had a rough 2019 with 2 underperforming games and significant delays for their big upcoming titles. There was even a big unannounced game that got cancelled recently at Ubisoft Montreal, something that also shows that the publisher is changing. They have to get 2020 right, and while it's looking promising, it will also be challenging, and maybe they're already shooting themselves in the foot. So let's take a look at what Ubisoft will bring in 2020 and how it will be a super important year for one of my favorite publishers in the industry. Yes, a like would be super appreciated, and let's go. I received this Christmas card from the Benelux Ubisoft office, wishing me happy holidays and saying that the best is yet to play. And for Ubisoft, this is hitting the nail on the head. This year they should have launched 2 successful live service online multiplayer shooters, but instead both The Division 2 and Ghost Recon Breakpoint, especially Breakpoint of course, did not perform as well as the French publisher had hoped. The Division 1 generated more than $330 million in worldwide sales in the first 5 days on the market, setting a record for a new franchise and for Ubisoft as well. We never got a press release like that for the second game. They actually said quite the opposite, namely that it underperformed. But it also wasn't hard to notice that there was very little hype compared to the original that had everyone's attention in March 2016. The Division 2 reviewed well, but the post-launch has been pretty lackluster and is failing to keep players interested. And I don't think that we have to talk that long about Ghost Recon Breakpoint, right? This has actually been a disaster in terms of financial performance, as Ubisoft said so themselves in a press release. And pretty significant discounts of this now 2-month-old game followed, where you can already get it for 67% off at Amazon, so $20. Nothing set this game apart, or it did nothing really well and forced in features that nobody really wanted. I still had fun playing the launch version, but very soon realized that the game was the same all the time and that there was no good reason to explore the massive open world. It was very interesting to learn that they spent more money on the marketing for Breakpoint than for Assassin's Creed Odyssey that launched around the same time last year. Maybe only Lil Wayne and John Bernthal are happy with this game.
Wayne Michael Carter Jr.
Bam Bam the dog.
Either way, they learned from this commercial disaster, and we should see the first results of that in 2020. Because the 3 games that they had planned for early 2020 are now all going to release in the second half instead, so between July and December 2020. And that is all because of the disappointing sales of Breakpoint. Ubisoft noted that they could have launched these games in early 2020 if they wanted, as we see in this tweet from Daniel after listening to the Ubisoft conference call. Like Watch Dogs Legion had a launch date of March 6th, 2020, and Gods and Monsters from the Odyssey team was expected in February, with Rainbow Six Quarantine somewhere in between. But Ubisoft decided that they wanted to give their teams more development time to ensure that their respective innovations are perfectly implanted so as to deliver optimal experiences for players. And Watch Dogs Legion is obviously the biggest game of the 3 that got delayed. Just like The Division, this new IP that launched in 2014 broke sales records for Ubisoft. The game sold more than 4 million copies in the first week, becoming the best-selling Ubisoft game in the first week of release. But the launch sales of Watch Dogs 2 came nowhere near Watch Dogs 1, so with Legion, they really have to get it right. Like, they have to prove that there is room for this series to exist. But they also have to get it right because they have been working on this game for a very long time. While doing research for a recent Horizon Zero Dawn video, I saw that Darren, who is now working at Guerrilla Games as a principal animator, started working on Watch Dogs Legion at Ubisoft Toronto in August 2016. So that is even before Watch Dogs 2 came out, but yeah, his work was already done for Watch Dogs 2. So yes, that is 3 years ago, and the game will be in development for 4 years when it comes out in 2020. I expect an August 2020 window for it, and then a PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X version around the launch of those new consoles. Watch Dogs Legion was actually initially first planned for a fall 2019 release, according to Jason Schreier from Kotaku. And Ubisoft sequels normally are in development for like 3 years max. But this will be different. There will be a lot riding on this game. And I'm excited for it. Like, I played it at E3 and I think that the play as any NPC idea sounds very awesome and unique. But as said before, I need to see more, and I hope that it doesn't fall in the same trap as Breakpoint, where the first few hours are really exciting, but after that you notice that the game is basically the same all the time. But I totally have hope, and that Ubisoft is willing to delay the game so that the team can work extra hard on it really shows you that they want to get it right. And speaking of Watch Dogs, the Watch Dogs 2 team at Ubisoft Montreal just had their game cancelled. Because again, Ubisoft Toronto is leading the development on Watch Dogs Legion, while Watch Dogs 2 and the first one had Ubisoft Montreal as the leading team. Either way, Louis de Caruvel, and I hope I pronounced that right, who worked on both games at Ubisoft Montreal, tweeted out that the project he has been working on for the past 3 years, so after Watch Dogs 2 was finished, has been cancelled. This is tough news because I've been working with all these people for around 7 years, during which we shipped both Watch Dogs and Watch Dogs 2. This tweet was now removed, by the way, but WCC Tech luckily copied them on their website. Because Louis continues, saying that his team was 200 plus people big and that everyone could be relocated to an existing project in the studio. There are over 15 of them now. So Ubisoft Montreal is working on 15 different games at this point. I'm sure some are live service games. Of course, one is the new Assassin's Creed, the new Far Cry game, I'm sure, maybe some For Honor stuff. And of course, they're not the lead team on all these games, I would imagine, because they're also helping with Watch Dogs Legion, while again, the lead team is in Toronto. So yes, instead of laying all these people off that worked on this cancelled game, they gotta choose where they want to go to. That's pretty cool. Jason Schreier on Reset Era chimes in, saying that he heard that this game was Destiny-like and that a lot of big changes are happening at Ubisoft. It's really something to cancel a game after 3 years of development, especially with a 200 plus team working on it, and something that also maybe seems to be the result of both The Division and Breakpoint not performing well. They want more variety across their games, so releasing a Destiny type game after you got 2 live service games that did not really do well doesn't seem that smart. Although Jason, and rightfully so, notes that there is of course more to this story than we likely know, so maybe the game was just not working out. He continues that this cancelled game is not Pioneer that was teased in Watch Dogs 2 after hacking the Ubisoft San Francisco office. No, that game somehow turned out to be Rainbow Six Quarantine, a co-op game in the universe, likely inspired by the Outbreak mode that they did as a special event in the game. Although we did not really hear too much about this one yet, but it should be a big one if Ubisoft gets it right. Because I'm not sure if you are aware, but Rainbow Six Siege is really what kept Ubisoft afloat this year. They just continued to sell this game. It was number 9 in the top 10 best-selling games of August 2019. It came out in December 2015. And it also hit a record amount of active players recently. Like, it's only growing and will likely continue in 2020, as Ubisoft has been increasing their content output for the game, and it really seems to work out. Rainbow Six will be a nice, steady and very important income for Ubisoft as they move into 2020. But still, the first half will be painful compared to the previous years, because of the lack of some AAA releases. While normally, they always have some big releases planned for the early parts. But now the idea is that it pays off in the end, and Ubisoft is banking on this second half of 2020 with at least 3 games. Again, Rainbow Six can be big if it's done good and has enough content for that $60 price tag. And I totally think that Gods and Monsters can find a niche too, although I have to be honest with you, I'm kind of concerned about the development of this game. I might want to do a separate video on it, but the short of it is, that quite a lot of big names that worked on Assassin's Creed Odyssey and that were working on this game have left in the last couple of months. And there were already reports of troubled development because the Assassin's Creed Odyssey team was expected to launch this new IP in less than a year and a half. Of course, it's now different, but still 2 years for a new IP is very ambitious. It is just worrying that from the 5 big AAA games that Ubisoft wants to launch between April 2020 and March 2021, so in fiscal year 21, 4 of them seem to be planned for the summer and holiday 2020 window. And yes, this of course includes the new Assassin's Creed that we already discussed multiple times here on the channel. It seems to follow the Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag route and be a cross-gen launch title for the new PlayStation and the Xbox Series X. But yeah, then you want to launch Watch Dogs Legion before that and not close to it. Otherwise, both games will cannibalize each other. And the same can be said for Gods and Monsters. Like, I will totally be playing that game, but if it launches close to the new Assassin's Creed or Watch Dogs Legion, then I will pick those titles over this new IP. So the release dates will be super important and interesting to watch. Also because Ubisoft wants to release the new Roller Champions free-to-play multiplayer sort of sports game in that second half of 2020 window. And also Just Dance will obviously launch in 2020 during the holiday period. So yes, there's a lot going on for Ubisoft and they have to get these games right after the 2 AAA failures they had this year. But I have hope that they can turn this around. 2019 has been a black mark on an otherwise fantastic generation for them, and I think we will see them recover next year. The first half of that year will be focused on expansions and updates to their live service games and likely marketing moments for their 3 delayed titles and announcements of the 2 other still unannounced titles like Assassin's Creed Ragnarok and likely Far Cry 6. But then in the second half of 2020, they have to successfully release those games. They have to show that these delays did those titles good, that they are different enough from each other and not the same Ubisoft open world game that we've played so many times before. And no, I don't think that Far Cry 6 will also launch in that same second half of 2020 window. I think they will go for the Far Cry 5 release window, so March of 2021. It will be fascinating to see how Ubisoft will tackle 2020, and I will of course cover everything here on the channel alongside the other bangers of 2020 that will launch, and I will do a big video on those games, on everything we can expect in 2020 very soon, so keep it locked for that. Subscribe for everything, like the video to support the channel, and just a quick reminder that you can get 2 days early access to these big videos if you become a member of the channel by hitting the join button next to the subscribe button. And if you support me in that way, I can improve the channel by hiring people to edit these videos and help me out in other ways too. For now, I will totally speak to you next time. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, check out my previous video on Assassin's Creed Ragnarok if you haven't already, and goodbye.